G'day, g'day.
Hey, Jono, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, my friend. G'day to the viewers. Please comment and say g'day. We'd love to know who is viewing and throw questions at us while we are addressing the topic that is today the Ten Commandments as they appear not just in Exodus and Deuteronomy, our canonical texts, but also in older, very ancient texts. Peggy Sanders is
Hey,
first in.
Peggy,
G'day,
how are you?
Peggy. How are you, mate? And we're going through all of those, and of course, including uh, who's this? Marlene? Is that how we pronounce that, Marlene?
Yeah,
And g'day to
Marlene.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and including, of course, the Moses Scroll, and that's what. Now, last week, if you missed, g'day, Mark. If you missed the first one last week, we did address the first commandment. Now we are on to the second. And before we get into it, Ross, just to Peggy says, "G'day, mates." That's it. Do you know how many we've got? A lot of Aussies this year coming on the Tanakh tour, which is great. We've got a
Yep,
whole embassy of Aussies coming on the bus. The Tanakh tour is still happening, of course, and there is still room available for anybody who wishes to join. We would love to have some viewers with us, and there's places. There's a little bit of space still on the Egypt Jordan leg of the Tanakh tour this year. And straight after the Egypt Jordan tour, we're going to Israel, the second leg of the tour. You can choose both. And if you do so, you'll save $100 combination discount. If you can choose one or the other if you so prefer. You can go.
that's
Some
right.
people are just doing Israel, some people are doing Egypt and Jordan. We're really looking forward to it. And it kicks off on the 31st of October. And all through November, are we doing the Tanakh tour? The ultimate Tanakh tour this year. The link is on your screen,
Hey,
www.tanakhtours.com.
Jono,
Ross.
on the remember, just to remind people, I put a full itinerary on rossknichols.com. So if people want to look at, because some say I don't need an itinerary, whatever Ross and Jono do, I'm happy with. I'm happy.
That's what everyone's done every year that we've
That's
been
right.
doing it. But we're going to Egypt and Jordan for the first time, and people are saying, "Hey, what? There's so much to see
That's right.
in Egypt. My goodness! I mean, it's
Yep.
huge. What
That's right.
exactly are we doing? You can find that. G'day, Jeffrey, over in New Zealand. There, you can find it there on rossnichols.com.
RossKNichols.com.
Rossnichols.com.
RossKNichols. Don't forget the K. Listen, let me tell you real quickly. The reason we put the K in is because some witch named Ross Nichols, a Wiccan guy, like a
Oh,
high
really?
priest of the Wiccan order of whatever, also has the name Ross Nichols. So if you look up Ross Nichols, you're going to find me, but you're also going to find this witch. And I don't want people to get confused.
Don't get
I'm
confused.
not the witch, so put the K in, okay? I mean,
All
it's that
right,
easy. All right.
there it is. And all right, so are we going to jump straight into it?
Man, let's jump straight into this. I
Let's jump
tell you,
straight
I'm
into it.
excited about it. And
I'll tell you why I'm excited. And again, if people haven't watched last week, then g'day Ben. Then uh, then you'll know you won't know. You'll have to go back last week and watch, and you'll see that Ross has provided a graph, a table, if you like, actually a table, showing in Hebrew the commandments side by side in each of these ancient texts.
yeah,
How and you can see very easily how they are similar and how they might have differences. So I'm keen and I'm hoping and I'm pretty sure you have done the same this week. Is that right?
I have, and let me say while we're talking about this, I posted on my. I'm going to share my screen in a moment, Jono,
Hmm.
just to show people my academia page because on my academia page, I have a couple of documents that people will want. Not everyone studies Hebrew. I'm looking forward. Hey, Tiffany, I'm looking forward to
Dan.
having a couple of people on the tour that are better at Hebrew than I am. I think Jeff Arnold is better than I am at Hebrew, but he's going to especially appreciate this, as anyone who studies Hebrew. So
Hmm.
let me share my screen
Hey
and
Frankie.
let me pull up my academia page. Okay.
Speaking of people that are better at Hebrew, where's Christo? He's late again.
I don't know.
I'm putting a
Look,
mark by his name.
can
Okay,
you
keep going.
can you see me scrolling my
I
screen,
can see you
Jono?
scrolling. Yeah, I've got it
Okay.
here.
So on my academia page, I don't know if you can see the bar at the top, the
Mm.
address bar. It says independent.academia.edu/Ross K. Nichols. Don't forget
It's
the
a
K.
K. Mm.
And can you see the bar? Am I showing you the bar here?
I can see it says now available campus-wide and department access to Academia Premium.
Let me see
Is
if I
that
can.
the bar you're talking about?
No, actually, it's the address bar where you type it in.
No,
Anyway,
I got it.
I'll put the link in the comments. But if they go to my academia page, under the category teaching documents, you'll see
Mm,
teaching documents.
I got it.
And then on teaching documents, there are two two pieces of work that I did. One is called the 10 words in Hebrew, a comparison of Exodus 20 and Deuteronomy 5, which I'm pulling up now.
Mhm,
It's a one-page document, Jono.
mhm,
Now, what this does is it compares Exodus 20 to Deuteronomy 5 in
mhm,
Hebrew. And you'll notice the yellow highlight. What I've done is I've highlighted every difference between the two. Both of these claim to be the word that God spoke to the children of Israel from the fire on the mount on the day of assembly. You can see that they differ.
mhm,
And
mhm.
then the other document, and we'll jump in just a moment, the other is the English version with explanatory notes.
Okay.
It's a three-page document. People can print those out. Very helpful PDF. It doesn't matter what programs you have loaded on your
Mhm,
computer. Okay, so those documents are going to be helpful. And then the other document that you spoke of that we used last week, we'll
mm.
pull that up in a few minutes because what it does, I went through each of the words, not
Mm.
commandments, each of the 10 words, and I listed side by side 7 different versions. The Exodus and Deuteronomy from the canonical
G'day, Lynn.
text. Hello, Lynn. The Septuagint, not the Septuagint, the Samaritan Pentateuch, Exodus and Deuteronomy.
Mhm.
We've got a Dead Sea Scroll in there called the All Souls
All souls.
Deuteronomy,
Mhm.
the Nash Papyrus, and my favorite manuscript on the planet, the
And mine.
Shapira
Yeah,
manuscript strips.
the Moses
All right.
scroll. All right.
All right.
Very
I'm
good.
ready. I'm ready.
Okay. So, do you wanna put this up on the screen already,
I
the
can.
comparison?
I
Now,
can.
yep, okay, so while you're doing that, the first thing that we will notice is that we're looking at the, well, let me start by reading it from Deuteronomy, if I may.
Do it.
This is the next commandment we are dealing with. Once again, very quickly, dear listeners, in case you've just tuned in, different traditions number the Ten Commandments differently. The first one we treated as the prohibition against idolatry. The next one is you shall not swear falsely by the name. Um, and so we're treating this as number 2. And as we mentioned last week and the week before, the canonical text only has 9 commandments. It's divided differently, that there may be 10, because in 3 places in the Tanakh it refers to the 10 words, the 10 commandments. And so it has to be done that way. There are 2 ancient texts that we are going to be dealing with that does in fact have 10. We'll get to that.
Yep.
Anyway, this is from verse 11 of Deuteronomy chapter 5. You shall not swear falsely by the name of the Lord. That's Yud He Vav He, so Jehovah. You shall not swear falsely by the name Jehovah, if you like, your God, for the Lord will not clear one who swears falsely by his name. So there it is in Deuteronomy. And Ross, my first question is
Yep.
there any difference between the way it appears in Deuteronomy and the way it appears in Exodus?
No, actually, that's an
Hmm.
excellent question. What we find, Jono, is that the second commandment, as it occurs in our standard Masoretic text, is the same, virtually the same across the board. Those that study this in English or Hebrew will see this. Those documents on my academia page, but basically, it's all but identical. Let me give you one example of a slight difference, and it's only in orthography, only in spelling. If you look at the All Souls Deuteronomy, Jono, It employs what we call the vowel letters. It's spelled clean or full. So whereas most in the canonical text it would be Lamed Aleph is low. No, don't. No, lift the name of Yehovah Elohecha, Jehovah your God. Don't lift that name for falsehood or something of that nature. And in the All Souls Deuteronomy, it spells it Lamed Vav
Vav.
Aleph,
Yeah, I
and
see
the,
that in the Nash Papyrus as
and the
well.
same in the Nash Papyrus.
So
That's
it
right.
clarifies the vowel sound with the Vav. Okay.
That's right. That's right. And later, of course, in Masoretic text, we find that that was done with the nikudot, with the dots and so forth, and the
Hmm.
vowel letter, the cholim, instead of the full vowel vav, or the
Interesting.
cholim vav, you might say. So virtually it's the same. Now we'll get to Shapira in a few minutes, but do you want to go ahead and tell them that the second word in
Yeah.
Shapira? Go ahead and tell them about that, and then
So
we'll
this
read
is
the
an interesting thing. The order in the Moses scroll is different. When we go to the second commandment of the Moses scroll, what we are reading is the commandment or the word to observe Shabbat, observe the seventh day as a set apart day on which you shall do no work, you shall cease. In fact,
Yep,
it says,
yep,
and that's the second commandment. Now there is a great deal of logical sense as to why that would follow on from the prohibition against idolatry. We will get to that when we get to the fourth commandment of the canonical text. We'll talk
yep.
about that then. But it appears as the second commandment in the Moses scroll. The one that we are comparing this to, Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 11, and the equivalent Exodus, corresponding one in Exodus chapter 20, appears as the fourth commandment, if I'm not mistaken, I think, Ross, in the Shapira scroll. Is this the same throughout all these other ancient texts? That it appears as the second, as the second commandment, correct?
That yes, the answer
Okay.
to that is yes. Yeah,
All right. Now, in the fourth commandment of the Moses scroll, it's a little bit different. It's clearly the same commandment.
yeah.
It is the corresponding commandment, but it reads just a little bit differently.
It's
And
actually the seventh in the Shapira manuscript. I'm sorry, I may have said fourth, but it's the
I said
seventh.
fourth. It's the
Yeah,
seventh.
you
Okay,
shall
there we
not
go.
swear. Yeah, hmm,
All right. So it
right.
appears as the seventh. Okay. Um, how does it? Shall we go to the Shapira and read it as it appears there, or where
Yeah,
do you want
yeah,
to go from here?
we might let's go ahead and do that because we're really trying to compare as closely as we can the manuscripts that we know, the Masoretic, and Samaritan and so forth, with this manuscript that's not so well known, and then we'll talk about similarities and difference. So give us the English, if you will, of this particular commandment from the Shapira scroll.
All right. So I'll just do this off the top of my head. So just correct me if I get something
Oh,
wrong here. But
I have it open so you don't misquote it. If
well,
you
let's see if I can do it, Ross. If
well,
I
let's
remember
see. Hey,
correctly, I
all
think
right,
in the Shapira scroll, in the Moses scroll, it
drum
says,
roll.
"Do not lift my name to deceive, for I will avenge the iniquity. Fathers unto sons, unto grandsons, unto great grandsons, lifting my name to deceive." Did I get that right?
You're very, very close. You
What do we
you
got?
used the phrase lifting the name, whereas Shapira is very, very straightforward, and we'll talk about this. It says, "You shall not swear, lo tishva bishmi." You shall not swear in my name, to lie, basically,
Hmm.
or associating the name with a lie. The rest of it you got exactly. And then there's always the signature at the end of each of the 10
Quite right.
words in Shapira. Anochi Elohim Elohecha. I
Hmm.
am Elohim, your Elohim.
Hmm.
So there you have it. Now, I say we get into a little bit, Jono, about, you kicked us off with the way that we typically understand this second commandment, the second word, as I grew up with it, you grew up with it, English translations. Most people understand this as, I remember as a kid, when I first kind of got introduced to this, probably in church in Sunday school or at my grandmother's house or under my mother's tutelage, which is where I learned most of my Bible from my mom, actually. We need to
Hmm.
get her on here. She knows the Bible better than I do. But the idea that I initially had for this don't use the Lord's name in vain is the way I would typically,
Mm,
you know. I think the King James says something about that, using Old English. Well, in the Deep South, in the U.S. at least, there's a certain piece of profanity, an expletive, where you curse and you say God, and then you say something ugly, right? So that
mm,
now I was kind of always led to believe that don't ever do that. Now I'm
mm.
saying you should never do that too. I agree with that. But that's not what this commandment is talking about, is it? This
Uh,
word is not talking about, I mean, again, don't do that, but
mm,
that's not what this is talking about.
mm. No. So once again, as it appears in Deuteronomy, you shall not swear falsely by the name of the Lord your God, for the Lord will not clear one who swears falsely by His name. It seems like, yeah, don't. It's not just don't lie. Don't invoke my name to your lie,
Yeah,
to misrepresent something that I have, given a quote unquote kosher stamp to. Don't be doing that, because I will not clear one. What does that mean? I will not clear one who
yeah.
swears falsely by my name. It
Now
gives a
the
false
way that you
testimony to
just
that.
quoted that though, you're focused on the Shapiro manuscript. The way that the canonical text and all the other texts have it is lotisa. Don't lift my name for falsehood or for
Hmm.
vanity, as some people say. In other words, don't just like you're walking around and you're using God's name, you're lifting God's name, maybe even on your lips. We have quite a few verses where a person lifts in a manner of speech. You lift a name. So the idea that comes across the way it should be understood in the canonical text and all these other manuscripts is that you just don't, the idea is that you don't associate God's name with falsehood. Shapiro's is very, very clear and concise. Do
Hmm.
not swear, lotisvat, no, don't swear in my name for falsehood. So one other misconception, I think, is that you should never swear. Now, this comes primarily from the Gospels, from Christianity. Let your
Mm.
yes be yes, let your no
Yeah,
be
no, you know,
no.
yeah.
Don't ever swear. But I don't know. I think most of our viewers probably know this, but in a biblical sense, making an oath is actually a commandment in
Mm.
Deuteronomy. Can I do this real quickly?
Please,
Because
yeah.
yeah, Deuteronomy 6:13 says very plainly, and this is English, but it says it plainly in English, Hebrew, whatever language.
Hmm.
Uh, Deuteronomy, is it 6:13? Yeah. Uh, Revere only Jehovah your God, the Lord your God, and worship him alone, and swear only in his name. The implication
Hmm.
is that you could, God forbid, swear in the name of another God, but you shouldn't swear in the name of any God excepting Jehovah, the
Hmm.
God. You should swear in his name. The other passage quickly is Deuteronomy 10:20, and it says, you must revere the Lord your God. Only him shall you worship. To him you should hold fast, and by his name you should swear. Now, again, a lot of people say, well, you shouldn't swear at all. You should just let your yes be yes, no, no. But we see in Deuteronomy that it is a commandment that you should. In
So,
fact, yeah.
so can I? Sorry, can I just for the sake of clarity, because you mentioned that I'm now, and I love that I'm doing this. Actually, I'm reading the canonical text with, if I can say,
Pair
with
of
Moses
glasses.
scroll eyes. Yeah, with Moses scroll eyes, and so I'm just trying to bring myself back to the original understanding. And you're saying that to take an oath and to swear this oath in the name of God, and to swear falsely and not to carry out this oath, is something you should not do. But to actually make an oath invoking the name with intention to follow it out is something that's encouraged in Deuteronomy 6 and Deuteronomy 10. Have I got this correct?
Yeah, I think you do, and that's the thing that a lot of us have lost this element. It's something that appears throughout the biblical text. In other words, in the ancient world, there's also a paper on my academia page called "Swearing in the Name."
Mm.
It is
Oh, it's
a
excellent. That's right.
practice well, actually, the article got me in trouble. A certain rabbi called me and said, Ross, baby, why do you do this? Why do you stir up all these people? They're calling me now. And I said, anyway, read the paper, swearing in the name, because it shows that in antiquity, someone would say, Yehovah Chai, as Jehovah lives.
Mm.
Now, you don't want to do that if you're not telling the truth, Jonah. But it's a common practice. Kings and prophets and priests would use that. I show it in the article. They would use that over and over, the common people. But it was a way to put God's seal on your commitment to what you're saying is the truth. But people have gotten away from that, you see. They've gotten away from it, and they no longer do this. Now, there's an interesting passage in Jeremiah 4. I know we've got questions or comments coming. We'll pull
Yes,
them up in
Timothy.
a moment.
We will do that.
One thing that happens is that Jeremiah 4, let me just go there quickly. And I'm into Jeremiah, as you know.
Yeah. Now, by the way, while we're talking about that, I think you're up to class 18. Is that right? Are we coming
No,
up to
man,
18?
we're putting out 21. We're coming up
Oh,
on.
boy, I'm running behind. I've got so much going on here. I'm
I
probably up
know.
to 18. So you're up to 21 now, and not only that, but you've got Seth, your son, working with you. You've got new technology. You've jumped into some real
It's
professional ground
unbelievable.
here, and it looks really good. If you haven't seen that yet, dear viewers, you need to go there, and you'll find those on Ross K. Nichols on this channel.
Yep.
And they are exceptional studies on Jeremiah. Continue.
Yep. Okay, so Jeremiah 4, it says this in verse 1: If you return, O Israel, declares
Mm,
Jehovah, if you return to me, if you remove your abominations from my presence and do not waver, and you swear as Jehovah lives. There's the quote, there's the phrase. So he's saying, now look what happens if you do it in sincerity, in truth, basically, in justice and righteousness, nations shall bless themselves by you. So get this. Jeremiah is saying that the Abrahamic plan, remember, over 4 times in Genesis, Abraham is told that the nations would bless themselves. It's in a certain form of the verb. They would be blessed or bless themselves in you, Israel. But Jeremiah is saying that that blessing of the nations is contingent upon Israel swearing in truth to Jehovah. No,
mhm.
get your act together. This is very, very important. So I just wanted to stress that the way that this commandment is presented in the canonical, and we'll get to Shapira, is that when you make an oath, and the oaths are okay to make, you can swear. In fact, you're
Mm.
encouraged to swear, and this says the Abrahamic plan's contingent on it, but you have to do it in truth. You never, ever, ever swear, bring God's name into your lie. Like if
Mm.
you get in trouble, you get caught and you know you did something bad and you stole my wallet or something, Jono. And I said, Jono, did you take my wallet? You say, no, I didn't. I say, I don't believe you. And you say, as Jehovah lives, I didn't take your wallet. You better not have taken my wallet. That's
Mm.
the point.
Mm.
If, on the other hand, you invoke God's name into your misdeed, into your bad, that's where we get into what the repercussions of that are, what the consequences, and they're
And
dire.
they are dire. So, and all we have to interpret regarding these dire consequences is that he will not clear one who swears falsely by his name.
Yeah.
That's what that means. Well, it's interesting. But that jumps into g'day, DJ and Barbara and Linda and Timothy asked an excellent question.
Hang on,
Which
let me pull it up. Yeah, let me
shall
pull
we
it up
address that
on the
now?
screen. And
Okay.
look at that. I just want
All
to
right.
start using the technology. Get it.
Yeah, it's an excellent question. It's a really good question, and we absolutely intend to address that. And I'm glad that you've asked it. We'll do it now. Oregon, g'day, and Karen,
Hey, Karen.
it's Karen, and all right. So here it is. So last week, for those who tuned in last week, and if you haven't seen last week, go and watch it, and then you'll understand where we're going with this. But the first commandment, of course, is a prohibition against idolatry, and then tacked onto that is the clause that says that if you commit idolatry, that it will be taken out upon your sons, your grandsons, your great grandsons to the third and fourth generation. Um, Visiting the iniquity, I think it says. Is that right, Ross? Visiting the
Yeah.
iniquity upon the fathers to the sons, to the third and to the fourth. This is this is hotly discussed among theologians. What does this mean? Because uh, there are passages that are directly counter to this, and we talked about Deuteronomy 24:16. We talked about the passages in Jeremiah 31 and Ezekiel chapter 18,
Yeah.
and that are directly counter to the concept of what is often called transgenerational cursing or vicarious punishment, the idea that someone else can pay for your sin.
Yeah.
Transgenerational being that if you commit a particular iniquity, your successive generations are going to pay the consequence. Divine retribution shall be imparted upon them for your sin.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem fair. And again, there are clear references, passages that are counter that. So, what to do with it? How to understand it? And I suggested, well, I didn't suggest, I told you there is a solution in the Moses Scroll, as there often is. In the Moses Scroll, and it is this particular commandment, it says, again, help me out here, Ross, do not swear falsely by my name, for I will avenge.
Yeah.
It says, God said, and of course, this is all in the first person. I will avenge the iniquity. And then it says, fathers unto sons, unto grandsons, unto great grandsons, or fathers unto sons, unto a third and a fourth,
Yeah.
lifting my name to deceive. Is that fair?
That's close. Yeah. Yeah. So
Hello?
explain your point. Yeah. That's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what we have in the first commandment, prohibition against idolatry, as we read it in the canonical text, Exodus and Deuteronomy, is that fathers, sons to the third and to the fourth are the target of God's
Avengement.
punishment, if you like, vengeance, if you like. They are the target, and for the iniquity of the father. What we read here in the Moses Scroll with this particular clause is not the target, but rather an illustration of the iniquity. The iniquity is swearing falsely by the name, Elohim in this case, by the way, swearing falsely by Elohim, or rather taking the name and deceiving with it, right? And deceiving the son who, and deceiving perhaps the grandson, and deceiving the great grandson, fathers deceiving the successive generations using the name to do so. And as I said earlier, um, you know, giving a kosher stamp, if you like, to a particular deception, lifting the name or swearing falsely by a name that then carries on a particular belief to successive generations. It's illustrative of the iniquity, not the target of the avengement. I'll say it again. It's illustrative of the iniquity, not the target of the avengement. Is that fair, Ross?
Yeah. I think we had to find something, and we wrestled with this on private calls for months, I think,
Mm,
Jono, where we talked about all those texts that you just alluded to. In fact, Jeremiah and Ezekiel both refer to this as a proverb. Where did you get this proverb that the fathers eat sour grapes and the children's teeth are set on edge? How,
mm,
how is it that that's fair? It'd be like me being a really bad guy and Seth having to pay for it. That's not judgment. That's not fair. But Ezekiel makes it really clear, as you pointed out in Ezekiel 18. Let's say that a good guy has a bad son, and the bad son is the bad son, and then he gives all these different examples. It says, no, it's very simple. The one who does the bad is the one who's punished. So
hmm
that's the way we have to think about it. So the way that you've understood this clause, we can see how people would come to that conclusion because
mm.
countless generations have. Preachers, a lot of preachers make a lot of money off generational curses. Let me put my hands on you, Jono, and get rid of
Oh
that
my goodness.
generational curse.
Yeah.
And in fact, if you donate to our, or buy this
Mm,
cloth, you can sleep on it, and that generational curse would be bada bing, bada bang, it's gone. But the truth is, according to the Bible, the person that sins is the person that's punished. The
The
person who
best
doesn't
consequences.
sin, he's righteous or she's
Mhm,
righteous. So
mm,
yes, we did cover that, and you're right to bring it up in this class as well, because interestingly enough, in the Shapira manuscript, that part is not associated with idolatry and with the worshiping and honoring another god, but it's associated with this heinous crime of swearing falsely by my name, or not swearing falsely by my name, but swearing in my name for a
to deceive,
lie,
for a deception.
or to lie. It's
Mhm,
very, very clear.
yeah,
Now, the other thing that I want to make a point of is outside of the Hebrew, outside of the canonical 10 words, Exodus 20, Deuteronomy 5, and those other versions which match them almost to the T, that idea is alluded to, but it's not given as a direct command. In other
mm,
words, lifting the name. We can get close, but let's look at a couple of examples, Jono, if we can.
please.
Look at Leviticus 19. We're in the holiness code in
Ah,
Leviticus 19,
yeah,
and this is very interesting. Leviticus 19 has a series of, we could call them commandments or words, that many of which bear a signature of God, just similar to, not so almost exact in some ways, to what we see, at least in form, in the Shapira manuscript. So if we go to
mhm.
Leviticus 19,
Well, there to be if I can go even
yep,
further, and I'll say it, there's a number of similarities. We've done programs on this. There's a number of uncanny similarities between the Shapira, the Moses Scroll Decalogue, and Leviticus chapter 19. And I would suggest that this is clearly another attempt to recall the 10 words. Um, but we do have a program on that,
yep.
much further back. Yes, what verse are we in?
So let's read 11 and 12. 19, Leviticus 19, 11 and 12. I'm really interested in 12.
Okay.
Let's do
So
12.
from 11, you shall not steal, you shall not deal deceitfully or falsely with one another. You shall not swear falsely by my name, profaning the name of your God. I am the Lord. Go ahead.
Yeah. So let me tell you something about this. The Hebrew here in the canonical Leviticus 19:12 is exactly the same as that which appears in the Shapira manuscript.
Hmm.
It says, "Lo, no, you shall swear in my name, l'shecher, to lie, or for falsehood if you choose." But I think it's better, it's, in other words, just what we've been saying. Don't take my name and attach it to your lie.
Mm.
That's unforgivable. Well, I don't want to say unforgivable. That's not what it says, but it says it brings a lot of problems if you do this. So the Hebrew here matches exactly. And interestingly enough, in this particular word in Leviticus 19, it ends with "I am the Lord."
Mm.
Whereas in the Shapira manuscript, it says this phrase, "You shall not swear in my name, l'sheker," and then it
Mm.
says, Ani
Elohim.
Elohim Elohecha," I
Mm.
am God your God, or I am Elohim your Elohim. So I find this striking, very direct, no question as to what it means. Now, here's something interesting that I'd like to add in also.
Mm.
In Jeremiah's day, a scroll is found. 622 BCE, Hilkiah finds a scroll. He brings it. Ultimately, it makes it to the king. You know the story. I'll talk
Mm.
about it until people are tired of hearing it. But it's important. Now, look at Jeremiah chapter 7.
Hmm.
In Jeremiah chapter 7, we have what is called an intertext. It's related to the 10 words in an interesting way. We've made the point that nowhere in the Hebrew Bible do we find a later passage where the 10 words are quoted, neither Exodus 20 or Deuteronomy 5. But in Jeremiah chapter 7, in verse 9, I believe it is,
Mm-hmm.
it says, by the way, this is Jeremiah's temple sermon, is what we call it. He's standing in the house of the Lord, and he says in verse 9, will you steal, murder, and commit adultery, and swear falsely, and sacrifice to Baal, and follow other gods whom you've not experienced, and then come and stand before me? A lot of biblical scholars, rabbis, sages, preachers have noticed the similarities between this list and what we find in the 10 Commandments, or the 10 words. Namely, it has a direct match: steal, murder, commit adultery. Those are what we call the big three. They appear in a lot of ancient manuscripts and sources.
Mm-hmm.
But in this
That's what.
one, it says it follows immediately with swear falsely. Now, by the way, even the order and arrangement of these matches almost identically with what we find in the Shapira manuscript.
Mm-hmm.
But see, we've moved up for the sake of our broadcast this don't swear to the second position, just to put it in line with the canonical text. But if
Mm.
it's in its original order, it pushes it down,
That's
right?
right. As you mentioned, it's number 7, and these are preceding that, is what you're saying,
Yeah, yeah.
in that order. Okay.
Now, by the way, so lotisva, this is the same way that the word appears in the 10 words here. Also, there are a couple of other passages in the prophets. Now, let me finish my point about
Mm.
Jeremiah. Assuming that the scroll of Moses, the real scroll of Moses, the one he wrote, was discovered in the temple in the days of Jeremiah, Jeremiah says in Jeremiah 15, when your words were found, talking to God, I ate them. Now,
Mm.
it's my opinion that he means not literally that he ate the scrolls, but he means when they were found, and they were found in his day.
Mm.
The scroll was found. He says, I consume them. So I find this interesting that then immediately thereafter, shortly thereafter, this is very early in the ministry or the prophetic career of Jeremiah, he goes to the temple and he regurgitates the words that he's consumed.
Mm.
And by the way, it's fresh on his mind. He's seen them, and this happens to be one of them. That's a
Mhm.
theory. People might object to that, but it is, I think, very interesting. Now, the one thing about Leviticus 19, Jeremiah 7:9, Zechariah 5:4, Zechariah 8:12, each of those says the commandment is don't swear, and it's associated with Lasheker, Shin, Kof, Resh. In the canonical text where it says don't lift, lotisa, don't lift the name for falsehood, it's a different word. It's shin vav aleph.
Right.
So my point being that the biblical prophets seem to know about this prohibition very strictly about don't swear in my name to lie.
Mm.
And it comes up. So I find this to be very interesting that it matches very closely to what we find in the Shapira manuscript. Now, let me say that I learned this piece from Edon Dershowitz in his book, The Valediction of Moses, a proto-biblical book. People can get that for free on his academia page. Guy's a genius. He's got all
Mm.
sorts of things. But before I knew about Shapira, I taught a series, I think it was 15 classes on the 10 words,
Mhm.
and I was already beginning to see some of these prophetic intertexts. People can go back and listen. Those were done in August of 2020, I think. So I just want to underscore what this commandment or what this word actually meant, and how strong it is in making this point when you begin to consider that the prophets know something about this, right?
Mm.
Okay.
While you're having a look there, Tracy said, "Yeah, Idan is amazing." G'day, Tracy, and Tiffany too is there.
Yep.
Yeah, Idan is. It's very, very high academic treatment of the Moses Scroll.
Yep.
A lot of it is well over my head, but there's incredible detail there, and he really is. He's done an excellent job uh, dissecting and analyzing the Moses Scroll, and I can't believe that it is free and available for everyone to read on the internet, but it absolutely is. Um, and once again, for the story of the Moses Scroll, if you haven't read it already, over your shoulder there, the Moses Scroll, the book, you can get it on Amazon. It's now available on Kindle, so you can get it on your Kindle as well. Is that
That's
right? No,
right.
it's been available on Kindle for a while. It's your other book that is available on Kindle now.
Yeah,
Ah,
both are now available in paperback and Kindle. So, but
right.
the
That's the
Moses
other one. These are
Scroll,
the words.
yeah, the Moses Scroll is really a fantastic book, and I encourage people. It contains the text, as does Edon's. Edon's is more of an academic treatment, as you said. It contains philological things that are very difficult unless someone is really really ready to delve
Mm.
into that level.
And Tracy said the Moses Scroll is amazing. Now, if you do go to the English translation of the Moses Scroll, it's going to be a little bit different to what we just read out, Ross. Oh, finally, Daniel. All right. You're a little bit late there, Daniel. We're almost finished.
Daniel,
I
Daniel,
tell you.
Daniel, man. Mm-mm.
All right.
Daniel was with me last night, though, so he probably
Okay.
had enough. He's just now gotten to the. He was probably eating dinner or something. We'll give him a break.
There you
But
go.
but look, Jono, the thing about the 10 words, it's very important that we get to. We know already if you took the Moses scroll out
Mm,
and you looked only at the canonical text, as my documents prove on my academia page, or if someone just wants to look side by side, take Exodus 20, write it down, look at it, print it out, however you want to, put
mm,
Deuteronomy 5 next to it, you're going to see that they're different anyway in
mm.
both number of words and choice of words in places. We'll show you that sometimes Exodus 20 uses a different word. In fact, the word that we're talking about tonight, that the canonical text uses, Shin Vav Aleph, which is typically translated as falsehood, where the Shapiro manuscript uses Shin Kofre Sheker, which clearly means lie or deception.
Mhm.
That difference is exhibited even in the canonical text. So if you look at
Mm.
Deuteronomy and you compare a couple of the passages between Exodus and Deuteronomy, they switch those words. I had that in my notes in another.
Yeah, give
Uh,
us an example. Do you have an example of that in Deuteronomy? Do you have that in
yes,
front of
we're going to bring that up, Jonah, but it comes in a later commandment. So
you?
let
All
me
right.
let me look. Hang on, I'm ready for this. I'm ready.
No, because I remembered we've just a lot of these things we've
Yeah,
discussed
I'll
before.
show you where it is. I'll show you where it is. It's on this chart. If people go to my academia page, you can look at it. It's on this one. A
Hmm.
comparison of the 10 words in English, and it comes in word 8. You shall not respond against your neighbor as a lying witness, is what Exodus 20 says.
Hmm.
In Deuteronomy 5, in the Hebrew verse 17, the English verse 20, it says, and you shall not respond against your neighbor, exactly the same as Exodus so far, as a false witness. In other words, where one employs the word, where Exodus employs the word sheker,
Hmm.
sheen kofresh, Deuteronomy 5 employs the word Shin Vav Aleph.
Mm.
So slightly, now you could say, well, the words basically mean the same. Okay, all right. But what was it that God said from the mountain? Both of these texts claim to be the words he spoke from the mountain, from the midst of the fire.
So
That's
which
what
one is
we're aiming
correct? So
for here.
and this is what we in our introduction to this particular topic a couple of weeks ago, we pointed out that this is the center of the entire Tanakh. Without this, there is no Tanakh. There is no Mosaic faith, if you like. This is the revelation narrative that sparked the entire thing. This is really where it begins. And as Daniel points out, how can they differ? If both declare to be reporting of the same event at Horeb, how can they differ? Which one is the accurate record? And the only thing that you can really do with it is to, and this is what the rabbis do. This is in the oral law, if you like. It says that he spoke both at the same time, and that's really all you can do, because they're just absolutely different. And even that has major difficulties as well, and a lot of people aren't satisfied with that. So the question becomes, is one more accurate than the other? Is there a more ancient text that perhaps is even more accurate than either of them? And this is the reason why we're going through it.
Yep. I tell you, what we're going to do is each week we're going to bring these words to the table as sort of as a summary for this week on word 2. If you look at the 7 that we brought up from the beginning, the Masoretic text, Exodus 20, Deuteronomy 5, the Samaritan Pentateuch, the Nash Papyrus, the All Souls Deuteronomy, all of those 6 agree practically verbatim for commandment 2. Shapira has a different word for number 2. But we've, in order to compare as closely as we can apples to apples, we brought up one that we think is the closest to this. It involves invoking God's name in falsehood, slightly differently than the Masoretic text. It's more direct. It has textual support throughout the Hebrew Bible, particularly among the prophets. And so we would propose once again that this is a more accurate representation of what was probably on the stone tablets. Now, we're going to continue to go through these. Next week, same time, same place, we're going to tackle word 3. Now, at the end of this, we'll have time to do a summarizing and really compare everything once again. And we may do one at the end of this series where we just take questions and answers, and I think that would be fair, because we want people to take notes, study these documents that are on my academia page, study your biblical text, continue to make notes, and come at us ready. Next week, we're going to do number 3. All right. So that's going to be important for people to be ready for that. What is word 3? What are we doing next week, Jono? Word
What
3.
do we have?
Word 3, according to the canonical text, is the Sabbath day.
From verse 12, observe the Sabbath day and keep it holy, as the Lord your God has commanded you. Isn't that interesting? I love that. So that's Deuteronomy. It says, you know how God commanded you to do that? Well, I'm just, like it's after the fact.
Yep.
Obviously God didn't say that from Horeb.
Right.
So it's an interesting thing. That little piece is missing from the Moses Scroll. And interestingly, as I mentioned earlier on, in the Moses Scroll, that Shabbat is number 2. There's a very interesting reason why it follows on from the prohibition of idolatry. We'll be talking about that next week and right here at the same time.
Yep, we're going to be talking about the Sabbath next week. But speaking of the Sabbath, and I'll close with this, Jono, I want everybody to watch the premiere in my Jeremiah series this coming Saturday, this very YouTube channel, 10:30 a.m. Central Time. Log on. I'll be there with you to answer questions, to take comments. We'll do that. And then after the premiere, we're going to do a Zoom call. So anybody that wants to, we'll have a Zoom link. You can come on, you can ask questions, comments, so forth and so on. So I encourage you, Ross K. Nichols TV. If you're not subscribed already to the YouTube channel, I'm going to put that up, and I hope that people will subscribe to the YouTube channel.
Subscribe, hit the notification bell, and like this video. It all helps. Thank you very much. Boys and girls, we look forward to seeing you again next week, and until then, have a great one.
Have a beautiful week. And listen, don't swear falsely by the name of God.
Right.